Roger.
We're going to talk about how we all quit our jobs.
We are going to talk about clickbait. We all quit our jobs.
You want me to tell you about one of the rough part of town stories?
Yeah.
Creepy Creeper guy?
Oh.
As we call him.
What a gem of a human being.
She says, hello, I just wanted you to know that you have a murderer working there. The following is a N.E.R.D Productions podcast.
Hello. I'm Eric, and I like cheese.
Hello, I'm Annie, and I like to crochet.
Hello, I'm Roger, and I don't like either of those things.
And welcome to Eric and Annie Talk About. So,
I was lying. I like both those things. I just can't crochet or make cheese. You didn't say that. You just said cheese.
yes, cheese in general.
Yeah.
So welcome to our first episode with a guest. We have special guest, Roger.
Hi. If I'm glistening, it's just my natural glow, and not that it's 100 degrees in this room with all the lights.
It's very glowy.
Yes.
He's very glowing. He looks like the Wicked Witch after she's had water thrown on her.
I am
He
melting.
appears to be melting.
I'm just gonna let my dogs loose.
Okay,
Dogs out.
me and Annie discussed this morning. I was like, hey, we're going to wear shoes on the podcast because I think it's professional.
Nobody can see the dogs, so
Okay.
it's okay. They're in the kennel, but not
Dogs
It's a big
are in the
kennel. on the camera anyway. Okay, I'm going to try to... I'm the producer,
Yes.
Yeah.
that's
and I
fair.
produce everything that N.E.R.D Productions make, and also makes, and also anything else that I do. I do a lot of stuff.
We do a lot
So
of producing.
I told myself it's very difficult for me to just be a guest on camera and have someone else do it, because I'm like, oh, Nate's making noise in the chair. Is that camera still running? And I freak out. So I'm going to not and just hope for the best.
Just relax.
I'm just chill.
Put your dogs.
They are. Yes.
Roger.
We're going to talk about how we all quit our jobs
We are going to talk about clickbait. We all quit our jobs. Not
to
clickbait,
pursue
but-
podcasting, because this is just so lucrative. Speaking of which, this episode of Annie and Eric Talk to You About is brought to you by Niagara Water. You see, when I want the refreshing, crisp taste of spring water, I always grab Niagara. You could go down it in a barrel, or you could go down your throat into your digestive system to cool you off in a barrel. Niagara. Sometimes, water. Now back to the show.
Niagara. For people who care.
For people who drink, but only water.
For people who drink water. I drink a lot of water.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, me too.
No, you don't.
I did.
It bothers me when people claim they drink a lot of water when what they mean is flavored water. That is
Oh.
Kool-Aid.
No.
Oh.
They drink a lot of Kool-Aid.
So I would say that water flavoring in it is water, but
So would you say Coca-Cola is water? Because the main ingredient is water.
no. What I would say is, if you say you drink a lot of water, but you add a lot of flavor, it is a little misleading. But is it any more misleading than people say, oh, I just love coffee, and it's really just like a milkshake every time?
I think
true.
I agree with that as well.
See,
I'm at least consistent in my philosophy.
oh, so you think he's not really drinking coffee,
Oh, no.
but it is, in a sense.
I like milkshakes.
Speaking of which,
Yes. Speaking of which, I don't claim that is like coffee.
Sure.
I don't claim that I am a big coffee drinker because I drink that. I drink it because it's sweet.
But-
I would drink a
but-
milkshake on any other time.
but
This just
honey,
happens to have coffee.
what
in
did
it.
you say when Roger and Nate came? You're like, hey, do you guys want a coffee?
No, I specifically said I will make fruit. My wife will make frou-frou coffee for you. That is what I said.
Well, not when we got here. You just said coffee.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
It's hard to argue.
would you say lemonade is just flavored water? What is the threshold? This is a better question for you, Annie. What is the threshold between what and when it's still water and then when it's something other?
I think the amount of what you put in. Like, the water flavoring packets are only like that tall. So you can dump that in the thing of water.
You know what I think it is for me?
What is it? What do you think?
If it changes color, then it becomes something else.
Water flavoring changes color a lot.
Not all the time.
Like that great Crush
The ones I had,
that
like, I
Paula
had,
gave. I love those things.
I think your mom gave us the Dr.
Your mom.
Birds
Wow, those are good. Don't change.
Well, some of them were disgusting. But
Okay.
the one that I had was the lemon one tasted a little bit like bathroom cleaner. And I couldn't get past it, so I couldn't drink that. But I did have a different flavor. It did not change the color of the water, and I felt I'm drinking water right now.
You know what flavors? You know what flavors we have?
Ours has electrolytes.
Yeah, it's good for you.
Okay,
It is good
this
for you.
bothers me to know.
It's good.
She talks about electrolytes and stuff like that, and they're like, "Can you tell me what an electrolyte is?"
Vitamins.
She's like, "No, it's healthy because it has electrolytes in it." I'm like, "What's an electrolyte?"
So electrolytes,
vitamins.
I don't know really what it is, but I think what it is, you know how your brain like runs off of electrical
Well, your
impulses?
whole body is like body
Sure.
electricity.
I think what that does is it's almost like, you know how the metachlorians, right? Influence the
I understand how
I
that
think it's kind of what like, it's like drinking copper. It gives conduction to the body
calorical
to where
silver.
you can, sure.
Or colloidal silver.
I don't really know that. I'm kind of making that up, but I feel like that's what it does.
Electrolytes do conduct electricity.
Did you Google it?
No.
Oh, you just know.
Yeah, but it
felt like that was
bothers
true.
me when people's like,
Because when people like shut down, you know, like when your body's just like, bah, and you just pass, when people pass out, they always give them electrolyte water, electrolyte. You know what I'm
I'm
saying?
gonna hardcore expose you right now. You ready?
Okay.
You know my water bottle, the
Yes.
Vitapod that
yeah.
I drink.
Oh,
That has electrolytes in it.
You see, you take it as if I'm anti-electrolyte. I'm not.
No, I'm just saying
I
it
take-
gives you energy because you drank that. And you were like energy, energy, energy. The pink
I don't
lemonade
think
one.
that happened. I don't remember being energy.
I think it happened. I remember you were like,
Caffeine,
"This is so
stuff
good,
like that.
subscribe."
I don't think it affects me that much.
Well, it's not caffeine. It's electrolyte. It's different.
Anyway,
Stuff.
jobs.
Jobs, yes, we quit.
So, should I like talk about the job
Talk
since I
about
was
it.
there first?
Talk about it since you were there first, and then I'll talk about how I followed you. Basically, into every job I've ever had, I just go where I'll go.
I have to pave.
Like for sure every drink
Yeah.
I've ever had.
Okay,
Yeah.
well,
I have to pave the way,
yes,
including like
he's a trendsetter.
labor that I get hired out for, and then they're like, "Your brother can come too."
But that's just true for jobs.
I guess.
Annie's sister does work that she used to do.
Anyway, so I worked in 2019 after I got back from LA. Hashtag humble brag. I was looking for a job.
After I had that brief stint in
I went on Price is Right, saw Weird Al Yankovic live, and
not go
thought,
on Price is Right.
What?
You watched the Price is Right.
we're not going to talk about that.
That's so weird.
What
Yeah.
what else is there to do? And so I applied for a bunch of jobs, did a phone interview.
Tried to get the job at
It
Hobby
went pretty
Lobby.
well. They wanted to hire me as head of a department, and then realized I never had a job
Just
before,
picture
and so then said, probably not a good idea. Why don't we just put you in the lowest position possible? And I said, okay. And so that's how I got my job. Yes, that's how I got my job at a major
We call it
grocer.
Kroger.
No, no.
McGregor's here.
Let's okay, fine, you already said it. We'll call it Broger.
Bro.
Anyway, we signed NDAs, so there are going to be many people, and I'm going to have to refer to many, many, many characters. I have not written, but in my head, I wrote a screenplay for there is definitely, well, actually, there's a movie before. Yeah, I've told you about
I told
this.
her about this last night. She didn't know.
It's pretty
Right, I
brilliant.
told her about
It's
it.
pretty
You
brilliant.
need to see it. I'd be in it.
And then
We want to see it.
yeah, basically, so I worked there for 4.5 years, I think. 4 years, and I don't know what y'all are laughing about. 4 years and some change.
I'll tell you later.
I'm trying to think. I left in December, so it was October, November, December. So I worked there for 4.25 years, and then I left. I worked there before college and all throughout college, and then somewhere in there, when you graduated, so I guess 3 years after I'd been there,
Yeah.
because you got a job after high school, and I put in a good word for him, and then the managers interviewed him, and they said, we'll let you know. And then like months went by, and like a month and a half before they said, you got the job. For me, I knew immediately. Yeah, no, I remember, because what was happening, there was a lady that worked there that was an older lady, but very, what's a good word for it?
Hefty?
No. I mean, kinda. She was very vigorous and tough.
That one?
And we'll call her Priscilla because she looked like a grandma, but she was what we like to call a courtesy clerk, which was they go get the carts, they help people out, they bag, they clean, and she did all this stuff. And she loved getting carts. She did not like standing still. And so I always felt bad that she had to do that. She was like, "Don't you feel bad for me? I want to do this." I was like, "Okay." And she was trying to get a job for her son there. And they said that he had the job, but they would let him know when to come in, and it was like 5 or 6 months.
Oh, wow.
And that was around the time you were coming in, and I remember thinking, I hope that's not what happens to him, because he needs,
Can I tell a story that I remember from getting hired?
Yeah, go ahead.
I remember I met Mr. Twister, our boss, Mr. Twister. And
With the beard, kind of skinny.
Yeah, you know Mr. Twister.
Had a first name spelled like a basketball player, but not actually like the basketball player. Not pronounced that way.
Really?
There was a PH instead of a V.
Really? I didn't know that.
That he went by.
So
we might be able to figure that
Twister.
out. No.
Call him.
Okay, that's fine. It's fine.
I was talking to him, and the way I picture it, he was sitting on one of those desks up in like that first room, and I was doing some stuff on the
He probably
computer
was.
for training.
Yep.
And he was telling me about the schedule I was going to get. And I got hired as a cashier. And he was like, okay, so...
Which, by the way, just to...
That never happens.
Well, right, but I was on the front end. By the time you showed up, I think I was already...
You were moving on up.
I was moving on up. I was doing everything. So I was basically manager on duty without the title.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's sitting there, he's like, so... You did put in to get hired as a cashier, and we hired you as a cashier.
But
So I'm going to put you over in produce. I'm like... Okay.
see, one thing that you're going to find out if you listen to any of these stories, but just to give you an overview, this place was ran like, I don't know, the mafia or something.
Well,
like
because the union was the mafia.
right. So this was a union job,
It's actually started from
and we won't get too much into that.
Broger Union. Yeah.
But basically, Broger?
Yeah, I said Broger.
Okay. Anyway, there was a union that you could join, but it's a right to work state, and so basically there's like too many cooks in the kitchen. That's a nice way of putting it. Used to be too many chiefs and not enough Indians, but we don't say that anymore.
Hey,
even though we are.
you can make it.
Yeah, that's fine. Anyway, which is just true. But anyway, so you had the managers, you had the department head, then the managers over the store, and the assistant managers, and corporate, but also the union, and then like district managers. It was like basically the hierarchy was you had your department head and backup, then the assistant managers, then the main manager over the store, then the district managers, and then like big corporate over the entire division.
You know how no one quite
And the
knows how
union.
the imperial rank system works in Star
Right.
Wars? It's like
It was very similar to that. Like you could kind of figure it out.
every now and then just someone
but-
comes around with a title you've never heard of before, and everybody's scared.
Yes, it was always devastating when someone from corporate came.
I was very happy in my position.
Well, and I don't mean not to me and not to you necessarily.
No, what I was gonna say
but
is-
everybody that was in any kind of authority
That's what
would
I was saying.
absolutely
I was so
lose their
thankful that
mind.
I was at just the right level of position to where I didn't have to care
Right.
when the corporate was coming. So I was like, oh, so I just do my job with excellence as I typically do.
Right.
Okay.
There was no difference that needed to happen.
Yeah.
But also, we're a different breed than most
Well,
people.
that's
That sounds very narcissistic,
humble.
but
Yeah.
that sounds very unhumble. But I think just as Christians as a whole, the work ethic is
Sure,
different.
that's true. But also, we were just like raised to, get the job done.
Well, yeah, we've been.
And you don't have
we were-
to like, you don't have to be like rude about it in that way. But as long as it gets done and it's done some sort of semblance, is that a word, of well, it's done well and you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, then that's fine.
And if they can see that you've actually tried.
That too. And that's not to say, basically I got to the point where we're kind of getting ahead. But I started out as just bagging and cleaning the toilets and all that stuff, and then worked my way. It took the better part of a year, even though everybody else was getting promoted ahead of me. But it was because, and I found out, and this is very sad, that they punished the people who did well at like cleaning the bathrooms by making them clean the bathrooms forever, because nobody else would do it as well. So they didn't want to move me up, which also meant I didn't get a raise. It was a very bad system. So, you know, it really did it punished excellence, as I put it at the time. But basically, there was no reward for doing a job well done.
Yeah,
except for doing it more
humble.
Right. No, but like seriously.
Punished excellence.
They did, because if you were really good at the whole thing, you don't get too good at that. Like, you know, you're going to be stuck there. It's just true.
Kind of true.
So what I kind of started doing, I didn't like do a worse job, but I became very vocal about me not being able to move up because of all this stuff. And I was also the kind of person that would listen to anyone. So like all of the store gossip, everybody talked to me about it, all their struggles and stuff, and I never spread it either.
Yeah.
So yeah, you too, because you're just like, oh yeah, that's crazy.
You ever have a customer come up to you and confess everything they ever done?
Yes.
And it's like, I'm trying to put out potatoes. Right. Like, I do not need to hear about that.
Story.
I know. There's so many stories I could tell. But basically, so I had started in September. It didn't take me the better part of a year. I lied. It took like 5 or 6 months. But everybody else was getting promoted ahead of me, especially the younger girls. And, well, let's just say Mr. Twister had a proclivity towards giving individuals of a certain age and gender a lot of attention. And so, yeah.
Yeah, he kind of had that vibe about him.
I mean, nothing ever really confirmed, but it was, but it was.
Like, yeah, but there would be certain times when there was a younger lady who did pick up, but she was also learning to do floral. And I just remember I was there because I worked in produce, and he's telling her like how to do it, and he said, now make it look real good for me or something like that. And the way he said it was very creepy. I'm like, do I need to intervene here? Like,
yeah,
that was the kind of stuff. So anyway, and it was always like,
the lady who worked floral,
the perks that he gave were like, you know, they had this thing called I don't know, what can we call them? I think we'll just call them promised dollars.
That's what I was gonna say.
Promised dollars, and it gave you. You could buy stuff online.
You buy merch, broker.
It used to be.
That's what we could sell for the podcast. If we ever branch out to merch, we can sell broker hats,
right?
And broker t-shirts.
Anyway, all this to say, I complained and was basically telling them, you know, all these people are getting promoted ahead of me, so, you know, if something doesn't change, you know, something's going to have to change. And now I didn't have to, I could always express interest to the bosses because I was told to.
I am, the reason I want a job here is just, I feel like your company values align with mine, and I want to climb this ladder.
Something like that. But anyway, what I did was slightly, I don't know if it's underhanded. It's called office politics, right? So basically, I would say certain things about being unhappy to people that I never would, because I know that they would spread it. But if I wanted them to spread it,
I love how you're like, hey,
if I wanted them to spread it,
are gossips.
Yep.
So.
If I wanted them to spread it, I'd be like, man, I don't know about this. I don't like this. And then they would, you know, and then it'd get spread, and then you've got numbers on the register. What can I say? And that wasn't 100% maniacal. It was just, I really was upset. So it was true. But also, I wouldn't tell anybody that usually, because I would just do my job. So I got on the register, and then self-checkout, and they were just like, you know how to do this, right? And I said, no. And they were like, well, you're pretty smart. You'll figure it out. Wow. And so I did.
I had similar experiences.
Now, they didn't train people there. They fed you to the wolves, and if you got eaten,
tough luck. Yeah.
You got fired. Actually, they didn't fire people. They suspended you indefinitely. So that's another.
Separate.
Anyway, this is the thing. because of the union. If you fired people, you had to, if you were part of the union and they fired you, then they had to pay you severance or other stuff. So they never fired anyone. You were just suspended indefinitely. So you couldn't come into work, but you were still an employee there, because that's fair.
They just won't give you
this is the kind of stuff. So anyway, ultimately, long story short, around the time you're coming in, there have been like 5, 6, 10 people that are promoted to basically the manager position. It was called office. You held office, but not really. There was it was where the cigarettes were sold, but you got to be behind there. You had all kinds of like supervisor. You were a supervisor. And so they were moving all these people, like they would hire someone, and then 3 months later, they'd be a supervisor over top of me that had been there for 3 years. I didn't care for that.
Yeah.
Really didn't. And again, it was because they calculated how fast you scanned. They calculated how much shrink that you had on self-checkout. When I was doing these jobs, my items per minute were very, very high, and the shrink was very, very low. And so moving me into there, they knew anybody else taking my spot was not going to be good. So I found out that there was a girl that was hired, genuinely maybe had been there 2 months. They were going to put her in the office. They were going to make her a supervisor, and they were training her. And they had said something about, maybe training me someday. And I just flat out, when someone told me that, said, well, if that happens, I'm leaving, because I'm not doing that. I'm done. I've had my fun. I'll find a job somewhere else, because obviously
McDonald's managers were begging for
this is true. They wanted me over there because I was such a good worker.
Really?
Yeah. There was a lady, an old lady. Was it the old Russian one?
Mm-hmm.
That's the one I knew.
I don't know if she was Russian, but
she was like head of McDonald's West Virginia or something like that. She's like, hey, if you ever want a job, told her Audrey that, like, if you ever want a job, we'll hire you. Well, that was the new manager that said that. She didn't say that in so many words, but the old one was like, you should come work for me. But the new manager was like, oh, I'm the new manager. If you ever need a job and you want to leave this place, just come up there. We'll hire you on the spot. You don't even have to interview. And I was like, thank you. That is so sweet. I don't ever want to work at McDonald's, though, but thank you so much. Because I knew people that worked there, and it was... No, right. No, it's a good thing. Lined up.
But I had heard it was not the best place to work. But anyway, this wasn't much better.
So, McDonald's. For like 2 days. Yeah.
Oh wow,
you did?
He wasn't a fan.
I used to work there for about 2 days.
See,
brief stint.
He couldn't do fast food. Anyway.
Well, it's stressful, but anyway.
Yeah.
So I said, if they turn her and not me, that's the last straw. They've done this 7, 8 times to me. I'm not doing it again. I'll just leave. But again, I didn't say that to my boss because that would be disrespectful. I'm not going to raise Cain with them. But the person who was telling me, hey, did you hear that this is happening? That they just spilled that they weren't to me. So I knew this would get out. And so a couple days later, they were like, hey, I need you to come to the office real quick. And I was like, okay. They said, so you're starting training in here. And I said, oh, good. Now, it was basically a lot more responsibility with no more pay, but I was less often cleaning the toilets and getting carts,
which I would call career goals.
Right, and also they found out again that I was very good at that. So I was all over the place still, and the way that they worked it out, by the time I was in there, they had cut hours so short that there wasn't really much you could do. You had like one person in each position, and then once they left, you were on your own, and so that was bad. But then you come along at some point in there, and they said something about they didn't want family members working in the same department, which was a load because they had that all the time. But anyway, that's just true. If you know, because we'll have to bring her up later, I'm going to call her Babs. Yeah. And Babs and Lola was her daughter. And Babs and Lola worked up front. Then Lola married Jimmy from Meat. And they all worked together.
Jimmy
from the meat department also worked up front sometimes. And then her export husband got a job there. And he also was up front sometimes. So, it was all in the family up front.
Situation.
But when I was there, I guess they just realized we'd just be too good. I don't know. So, I spent a lot of time on that. So, and then you kind of talked about being hired already, basically.
Yeah, why don't we have Annie
Yeah.
talk about how she got hired?
Well, so not the same.
She did not work at Broder's.
Never.
She did not.
I at one point mentioned to him getting a job, and he's like,
I was like, you
don't
want
wanna
a job
do it.
there.
he's like, nope.
Basically, the job itself was fine.
I think you probably
The
did.
job itself was actually pretty easy if you had help. And even if you didn't have help, you could get it done. But the hoops you had to jump through, like the way that they measured good job was ridiculous. And it was stuff that was basically beyond your control.
Yeah, generally the way that
So-
they chose to measure success was something that you had no control over.
Example,
Yeah.
if you're in pickup, which was people drive up and you bring them their groceries outright, they order them online. The way they measured you did a good job for them was fill rate,
Sorry,
which
just all the
is
helicopters.
right,
Bye-bye.
which is helicopters.
PTSD from pickup.
No, for real.
Meme with the chihuahua.
Yes, yes.
Oh yeah.
He did have to do pickup for a while. But anyway, the way they measured success, you did a good job or you did a bad job, was called fill rate, which was they ordered Fiji apples. Did you have Fiji apples? Well, guess what? The pickup people have no control over any department and they're ordering. So you having the product is not your fault. You have no control over it.
True. Yeah.
So it was so strange. I mean, I guess you could look harder, but we had a system that told you how many they had in the store,
They
which was
would
often wrong.
send
But
people to other store locations
to get stuff for fill rate,
stuff for fill rate.
because
Because it's like communist China.
the managers, they got
The way
bonuses.
that it works.
The way that it worked,
Oh, wow.
the managers were never available to manage because they upped how much pickup they could do. And then corporate said, management, if you do a really good job on pickup, you're going to get a bonus. So the managers were always doing pickup orders. And anytime a customer had an issue on the front end, you know, like where people buy stuff, how we make our money besides pickup, they would say, yeah, I can't be up there right now. I'm too busy, you know, squeezing melons to figure out if they're right for this customer or not. You know,
I thought that went in with your poop stories.
it probably did, but it was just not cool. It was not cool. And it was very upsetting because you'd have someone ready to bite your head off, and I was at the desk, and I've already done all I can do, right? It's policy and then charm, you know, nicely saying, I'm so sorry, but you can't return the already half-eaten cheeseburger that you have, you know.
You don't even sell those.
Right, for one, and you don't have a receipt. So, you know.
I don't have a receipt for that.
Well, I got it this way and it was half eaten. Well, you know.
People would bring in bags of like rotten meat. They're like, I bought this 2 weeks ago and it was rotten when I brought it to the house. Did you put it in the refrigerator? No, it's been stinking up my house something awful. A bag of just...
I'm so sorry.
Me, it works.
There's nothing I can do for that because I actually cannot make the machine do that. It knows. It's very smart. It's not that smart.
No.
No, but seriously, like there was some stuff people would ask you to do and it'd be like, I could if the manager like...
Came and did the manager magic.
Right. I mean, I had a manager override, so I could do a lot of stuff, but then I would get in trouble.
Well, basically, if the manager told you to do it, you just kind of had to.
Right. And there's a lot of stuff I did because I was basically a manager that I wasn't supposed to do.
Same.
That's just true.
At one point, they made me manager on duty. Because I guess they saw that I actually just did my job. They're like, oh, he actually does his work.
Right.
Let's give him more work. And they gave me more work, but then at a certain point didn't equip me to do that work.
That's a nice way of putting it, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is what they did every time if you've been
well,
paying
no,
attention.
I had that as one of the stories.
Anyway, we totally mowed over her.
Mowed over you, so we'll come back to that later.
Yeah.
That's fine. I'm just listening.
But, go ahead.
So I hear that you worked at a coffee shop at one
We call
point.
it Lindsay's.
We do. We do.
Lindsay's Bakes and
Lindsay's
Coffees?
Bakes and
Yeah.
Coffees.
Yep. Well,
Delicious, by the way.
so good.
Not the bakes. The bakes are alright. Not all the bakes are very good.
They're not all created equal.
No.
Pizza, have you had that?
I have.
The crust
That's
on
good.
it.
Those are incredible.
Anyway, back to you.
But
how
the
I got
boffies, the
hired, right? What do you
coffees.
want me to
How you
do?
got hired, some fun stories.
On the spot. I didn't because
This was a small business.
it's a small business.
So there's not like corporate breathing down your neck, really.
No, I had.
It could be worse.
Well, you see the problem.
You answer to one person.
Annie Wooten breathing down.
That's true. It was all women except for
Oh
one
my
dude who works in the
goodness.
back. But yeah, I got hired on the spot. Well, not immediately. I'll explain it. So local coffee shop, knew these people. The lady that runs it, her mother was my parents' youth group pastors, and she kind of runs the business. So she was the wife of the youth group pastor. So we knew her. We went to church together forever. So she knew me. She knew how I was raised and that I would actually do the work. And so
that always
she
helps.
had her manager that she loved. Everybody loved her. She knew she was leaving, and she's like, hey, once she leaves, we'll hire you. You've got the next spot. So she did. She trained me, and then she left. Very sad that way I left her. But yeah, that's how I got hired.
What are you just did the coffees, or did you do other stuff too?
No, well, towards the tail end, I started decorating cupcakes, and then they would come behind me and dump it in the garbage. You know? I know.
Take the hint. Or basically, whatever they wanted you to do, they would mule her to do.
They would, but they would be like, that's not up to our standards. In the garbage.
They made her carry.
Not
like,
Lindsay.
They made her carry like 240 counts of water at once.
I did it. Well, they didn't make me, but
she had to like schlep water.
Me so much work that I had to.
Right.
Like I didn't have time to take 2 separate cases of water. I didn't have time to go to the bathroom. I don't know. You can cut this out if I want. This might be a bit too loud. There were times I was on the toilet and they're like, "Hey, come make me a coffee." Like the manager, she's like, "Hey, come make me a coffee," and I'm like, "I'm busy and I can't go all day because I'm running." And the people, there's 2 people. There's somebody at the desk. There's someone at the barista stand. The person at the desk is trained in coffee, so they can come help you.
Trained in the Jedi arts.
Yeah.
Right.
So they can come help you if you get booked up. I was so booked up, and they'd just be over there eating their lunch, like, this is such a good food, and I'm over there like.
Yeah.
Also, she did not get a lunch break.
No.
Everybody else did.
No, and I was on
She was
clock.
never allowed to.
I was on
That's
clock.
sad.
And when I would stop and eat lunch, if I would like sit with my friend Selena, I got
She would
yelled
get
at.
yelled at, not by the owners, just
No,
by, like I
just by
said,
the workers.
catty women.
I mean, I was just sitting with my friend Selena eating, and she worked there, so it wasn't like a random person.
Right.
And I'd get yelled
That's
at.
sad.
Because we would eat, and I'm like, we don't get a lunch break. You get an hour lunch break every day, and neither of us did. She would. I mean, people at the desk would work.
The way that I understand it, and I wasn't there, but I was
Well, you
in
were.
the situation. You know, I didn't work there.
Because this is when you were dating.
No.
Yes.
Brought me lunch and stuff.
I bring you lunch and stuff.
You knew the women.
I knew the women. The way that I understand it, and the way that I sort of perceive it is, if you were down, there was like the group. If you were all part of the group and you'd go along and get along with whatever they wanted to do, they'd treat you nice. But if you didn't just go along, then you were now garbage.
Right.
And not everyone was like that necessarily,
No.
but there were a couple people that did not. There were people that didn't like me for no reason. I mean, I was a good worker. I minded my business.
There are people that didn't like me.
Yeah.
Oh, I heard about that, yeah.
I make people uncomfortable.
Yeah.
We think it was...
Well, I understand that.
Well, we think it was because... we think it was for other reasons. We were doing a Bible study, and she wasn't too friendly to the Bible at the Christian coffee
I was going to
shop.
say, at first I was like, yeah, I could see maybe not. But then I was like, oh no, that's a good environment for that. Because it is, for one, a coffee shop.
And nobody was
And for
there.
2,
Well, we wouldn't have never done that if it was busy.
Right.
It was
wasn't
there.
busy, so-
I just pulled up a chair, and we were going through the Bible together. I forget where we were exactly. I think we were doing Psalms at the time.
And yeah, well, the second someone walked in the door, you
Yeah, and
would move.
I'd mark
yeah.
the spot, and I'd move so she could handle her business.
right.
Yeah. So it's not like
It's not like we were intruding on anything. She was over there minding her own business.
all my work was done.
He makes me feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right.
When her man was allowed to come around all the time, go in the back and everything.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But I think he was probably not down with what I was doing either, so.
I don't
All
know
that
what's
Bible
what-
study.
Down with something else. I don't know what that means, but anyway.
One time one of you said something earlier in the podcast, and I just said, you said something about, like, your mom gave us these water flavorings, and I went, your mom! And then nobody said
Mama
anything.
did. That's what my mom.
Oh, you just said, your mom. I just thought you were like shocked by that. I didn't know.
No, I just was.
Anytime my mom does something, that's what she says. She says, your mama did. She did.
Oh, talk about the cups in this Christian establishment.
Oh, okay. So
The cups that they sold?
yeah, they
Oh my
would
goodness.
they would buy cups and sell them.
Off of TV, I
And
believe.
I have one, and I love it very much. And I called it my Manly because it's an off-brand Stanley cup, and it has the handle and everything. So I call
glittery.
it my Manly. They had them with like naked women on it. Like
They were like
they were,
cartoonized,
and they were like strategically covered.
but it was like it was like a bunch of positive things on the cup.
Love
With pictures,
yourself.
and it was like love yourself,
I'm
and
like,
it's like a woman like with no clothes on,
No.
animated in
yeah.
like red and orange.
We can't do that. And
That
I'm
is
like,
wild.
Like, I brought it to her attention because I'm like, well, it's small. Maybe she just didn't see. And like, hey, like this has like a naked woman on the cup. And she's like, yeah, I know. Just turn it around, leave it. And I'm like, I mean, I love this woman, but she wanted to make a buck. She is very much making a buck.
Money, money, money.
But I mean, I love her. She's really sweet. I do love her. But
Okay. So should we talk about how we quit or do stories and then how we quit?
Yeah,
We're already 45 minutes.
I think it's been a very good show so
43.
far. I'm good. I think this one's gonna be an hour or longer.
what? Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say there were people I worked with that were really sweet.
Shout
Oh,
out
yeah.
if you wish. You don't have to, but
Emily, I love Emily. She just had a birthday from Bar Age. There was Selena.
Oh yeah, there was 2 locations. I
was
forgot about
Emily's
that.
last name?
Yeah, but
That's
we
what you
can't
say.
put that on there.
That's what you say if anybody's throwing something out at her.
You
I love
can't.
Emily. I love Sydney. I love Selena. And my favorite customer ever. You have to leave this in there in case she sees. Her name was Kim, and she would come in every day, and I would make her 24 ounce vanilla with a double shot of espresso, and she was the sweetest ever. I love her.
Oh,
And Kim,
that's nice.
we want
Oh,
you
we had
on
good
if you're
customers too.
listening. Kim,
Yes.
we love you. And we would talk about music and the road construction in Beaver at the time because it was really bad.
Oh, I thought you
It
meant if she
still
came on the
is.
podcast. I was like, ooh, we could talk about
I was
music.
saying,
I'm like, road
I was saying,
construction.
if she wants to come on the podcast, Kim, we would love to have you. Please reach out to me on Facebook. I miss you. Anyway, long lost family.
So,
I do have some prompts for you.
or we could do my fun party trick because Annie doesn't know. I know you want me to talk about one specifically, but I can do like you can name a genre and I have a broker story about it. That's true. I don't just make these up.
I need that one before the
Okay.
end of the show.
So-
I'll go ahead and tell me one. While
Well, just pick a genre, Eric. What would the genre be?
murder.
A murder mystery? Well,
Murder mystery.
if I must. So I thought I told you about this, but I probably haven't. So
I
You don't
told her the
remember?
prompt and she was like, wait, what?
okay, so I did talk about Babs and Lola
Babs and Lola
and her
Jimmy.
ex-husband Spencer.
Jimmy Spencer.
Jimmy
Lola's
was
husband.
Lola's husband. Spencer was Babs's ex-husband from Florida, and then Babs also had her current husband, who was a rather rotund alcoholic, and his name was Archie.
Archie Bunker.
We're gonna call him Archie. So Archie and her, their house was in a bit of a low
State of
place.
disrepair.
Yes, and she basically said, "Listen up, Archie. I can't stand living in this place anymore, and you're a no good for nothing drunk, and I'm going to leave you if you don't change yourself." Anyway, so
It gets worse.
well,
Sure it does.
this is how it starts. Build it up to murder. So, her ex-husband comes back from Florida, gets a job in produce, is there for like a week, and then leaves. It was really weird. I don't know why he was there. Well, he decided he was going to sober up for like the 3rd or 4th time, but he really did. He sobered up. And they were saving up. They were going to destroy their house and put a nice new double wide or something on it. There was a trailer of some kind or manufactured home. And so they were looking at it. They had it all set up. They had the house scheduled to be demolished. I think they had it demolished.
That's fake.
They were staying in, well, it was all in,
We believe in the
so they were staying at Lola and Jimmy's house
Lola and Jimmy.
while the place was being worked on. So they had it destroyed. They had like a shed. They also had that destroyed. They got everything out of there
They didn't even
that they needed.
Yeah?
No, they destroyed it all because they needed all this land for the thing. Or maybe they bought land. I don't really remember, but they had it destroyed anyway because it was condemned. So moving forward, it literally came up to the point where they were getting the trailer delivered in like a week or 2. She was very excited about this because she was finally going to have a nice place to live. This would be their forever home. I don't know if she said that, but basically,
The intention.
yeah, she was going to live there for the rest of her life, and she was going to be happy.
Forever home.
I know.
I know.
Forever home is heaven, or the other place. But anyway, she was so excited about this. She talked about it all the time. And then I come into work, and Babs was supposed to be there. She was going to be my closing cashier. I think this is true. And they were like, oh, she ain't coming in today. And I was like, well, who's going to replace her? And they were like, well, we're working on somebody to replace her, but she's not coming in. Her husband passed away. And I was like, what?
Which one?
Well, yes. And it was her current husband. It was Archie. Archie passed. They found him. He had like a heart attack or some kind of major medical incident, maybe a stroke, and they had left to go shopping, and when they came back home, he had passed away, and they saw him there. So that was very obviously not great. They found him, so not a good way to do that. She was distraught. Of course, she didn't come into work. Totally understood that. That was, fine. She actually did.
You wouldn't understand.
Either that night or the other night, come into the store just to get stuff. I think it was probably a couple nights later.
Supplies, perhaps Jello for the funeral.
She looked like she was doing good, and then she just like started boo-hooing, and I felt so bad for her. And the lady, I don't remember what I called her now, Lucille, who would get the carts, an older lady who got the carts. She was a courtesy clerk. She had also lost her husband, and so she was like, they always, but I understand what you're going through, and listen, they say it gets better. It don't get any better. And I was like, oh, this is so sad. And so she was just like consoling her, making her feel better.
You're like, no, I divorced his sorry.
No. So anyway, but she was like, it was good. He basically, she said that she thinks he knew he was going to pass because he basically told them goodbye.
Getting his affairs in order.
Yes, he made sure to spend like extra time with them, although they were all living together in one small house, so whatever, but still, he made sure to spend extra time with them. They were actually like loving each other instead of arguing all the time, and he basically just knew is what she was saying. So she comes back to work like a month later. At some point during that time, I am, of course, at this point, supervisor. So someone calls. Thank you for calling your blankety blank store broker. How may I help you? And she says, hello, I just wanted you to know that you have a murderer working there. And I said, I'm sorry, what? And she said, yeah, you have a murderer working there. Her name is Bab's last name, and she broke into the pharmacy at that store, stole drugs, and killed her husband. So I just thought someone should know that. And I said, I'm so sorry. There's no one by here that works here that, goes by that name. And she had hung up at that point. And I was like, what in the world do I do? Because obviously she didn't break into the pharmacy and kill him, we think. Now, whether or not it was a little odd that her ex-husband had just come back and she didn't really love her current husband.
Very suspicious.
Very suspicious. But then also, they had already bought the trailer. They had already bought all this stuff. It was very, very expensive.
Does it get more suspicious?
Oh, it does, if I remember correctly.
Well,
it's more incriminating.
It does a little bit, and I don't want. You're anonymous, and if they see this, I love you guys, but it is suspicious, and you must admit that. Anyway,
with Jimmy, so
yes.
Tight.
So anyway, I was freaking out because I was like, she just lost her husband, and somebody has to let her know that someone's accusing her of this, because I don't know if like they're going to be waiting out in the parking lot, and like you just don't know. It was not a good part of town anyway. Where I was working was not necessarily known for being a crime-free zone. So if someone calls and threatens you by name, I think you should probably tell them. So, but also,
I was in the rough part of town.
No, it wasn't like terrible, but yeah.
I had some story.
Yeah.
I didn't know I was in the rough part.
There was all kinds of stuff that went on.
I was like, oh man.
So she's just, scanning everything. She seems really good for, just being a month and a half, but she was powering on through. And so I said, what in the world am I going to do? So I went upstairs. For some reason, I was like shaking. I was so nervous. I didn't want to say it because she had just lost her husband. And so to be like, hey, someone just accused you of murdering him. Not a fun conversation to have. Yeah. So I went upstairs to Jenny, my manager at the time, and we had some not so great situations before where she basically lied and got me in trouble.
That one is one of your.
Yeah, but we can talk about that later. But at this point, we were pretty tight. I understood Jenny. She was just covering her butt, so whatever. It was a dog-eat-dog world, and she was just part of it. So anyway, I was like, hey, Jenny, so someone just called. And she was like eating. She was like, hey, what's up? So someone just called, and what was that? Was that water?
A water bottle, and it fell and did a flip and landed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We get it?
No.
Oh.
That's too bad.
Oh,
Anyway.
You're 53-minute marker.
Okay. So, I was like, hey, so someone just called, and you know how husband just passed away. Babs's husband just passed away. And she said, yeah. So they called and said that she murdered him by taking drugs from our pharmacy and putting it in his food. And she said, I'm sorry, what? and you never met her, so you don't know how she was. But anyway.
Relay, she just sounded insane.
Yeah. And I said, yeah, so like, I feel like we kind of have to let her know because I don't know if she would know who this is, and it could be someone's coming after her. They know her name. They now know where she works. I told them I didn't know her because really that was policy. If someone called and asked, hey, is someone working there today or where is this person? We were told not to because we did have stalkers that would come in, especially for the female employees, and be like, oh, is Christy working there today?
That's the truth.
Okay. Is Christy working there today? And they'd be like, yeah. Oh, okay. And then they'd come in and, wait till they were outside and maybe invite them into the car or something, So we were told never, ever again, if someone asks, you say, I'm sorry, I'm not allowed to relay that over the phone, or no, I wouldn't know, or no, they're not here. But then you tell them that they're not there, they can assume that they're home, and if they know where they live, it's a whole thing. So you would just say, I'm not sure, would you like to leave a message? So that I was just going by that. And anyway, so she said, yeah, okay, we're definitely gonna have to tell her. So I said, okay. So we go downstairs and I say, oh, hey, Babs. And Jenny's like, so Roger has something to tell you. I was like, really?
You're a manager.
I know. At this time, I was supervisor, not manager. Thank you very much.
No,
and so, no, right. I agree. I was just clarifying. And so I said, yeah. So, someone called and said that you broke into the pharmacy and used those pharmacy drugs to drug your husband, and then he died. And I just thought you should know that so you could look out. You want to be very... And she was like, oh, who was it? It was probably Andrea. It was probably Andrea. She's probably just drunk. She's all the time trying to start stuff. And I said, okay. Yeah, her sister-in-law or something.
Yeah.
And she said, she's calling me, accusing me. And she said that she, stabbed him or something. I don't remember. Some other way of murder. She's been doing this for a while. And so, Andrea is always doing the most to get her in trouble. And so I said, oh, okay. So she took it really well, and that was fine. But then it was a little weird that she definitely did start hanging out with her ex-husband a lot more, and I think they lived together for a little while. But
that's how it gets more incriminating.
That was
I thought they got
a little weird.
Again.
I don't think that they did.
I think they keep still hanging around, if I'm not mistaken.
It was weird because
son-in-law, and then they'd come in the store.
They lived in Florida. She worked at an orange juice plant. I know that sounds made up, but it's true. And he worked there too. They met there, they got married, and then that was actually her daughter, Lola's dad, was the ex-husband.
Yeah.
Mitch, is that what I called him? I don't remember. But Archie was not her dad, but basically raised her. And the ex, as far as I know, had no reason to be in West Virginia. I don't know why he left his good-paying job at the orange juice plant to get a job at his produce. It was very, very strange.
Right? Is that what?
Maybe genuinely, at most he was there for a month, and I think it was more like 2 or 3 weeks. It may have honestly also just been a week because you had to get hired, you had to do training, so probably the whole thing was like 2-3 weeks, and then he just stopped showing up. And that was all around the time, within like 3 or 4 months, the whole thing was happening. She's getting a trailer, she's doing all this stuff, and the whole thing, I never thought anything of it till then, but I still don't really think that that's exactly what happened, but it is a little suspicious. It's a little suspicious.
It's a little suspicious.
Yeah. Anyway, do you have a story you want to tell?
I do, but since Annie hasn't talked much, I'm gonna let her go.
That's a good idea. That's a good idea.
Do you want me to tell you about one of the rough part of town stories?
Yeah.
Creepy creeper guy,
Oh,
as we call
Yeah.
him.
what a gem of a human being.
Okay. So, so in the mornings, I would have to work alone because I'd be the first one there. There was no one in the back baking. So it was just me, and I'd be up front by myself as a barista. And I would start getting creeps, and Eric's like, okay, we're not having any of that. I'm going to stand in the corner.
Yeah.
Mostly because of this guy. This guy's the reason.
Yeah.
He would come in every day and order a black coffee.
Can I
and he had his own
impersonate
water
him
bottle.
when you
Sure.
get to his order?
Okay, he has his own water bottle filled with his special creamer, and it was green.
Special. It was like I remember it was like a light tan kind of.
Yeah, like a gray.
But he
maybe.
carried it in like an old water bottle.
Every day.
He was like, "Can I get a 14-ounce black coffee? But leave a little extra room at the top. Don't fill it up all the way. I gotta put my special creamer
He
in."
would have me pour it out, like if I filled it too
He's like,
much.
"You put a little bit too much. Pour out."
It's true. And then every day he would have me go to the fridge and grab him a cake pop, and he'd stand right there like this.
So I started striking up conversation with him.
Yeah, so he wouldn't come to the
so it
fridge
would
and
be-
stand close to me.
Yeah. Smart.
Oh, tell a story about what happened to your friend Selena in the same vein while you're.
I
on
don't
the
know if it
creepy
was the same
creamer.
guy. I wasn't working that day.
Yeah, I always assumed it was. the
I
same
would.
guy.
I don't know. But anyway, he would always come in and he would always talk to me, and it was just creepy and weird. And what kind of creamer did he have? I don't know. Why did he stand so close to me in the fridge? I don't know. There was times he was so close I thought he was going to touch me.
Oh.
Like,
And he would have died.
not having that. Not
Like, so,
today.
what you up to today? And one time, he's like, man, you're like always here.
He's
I
like,
think I
don't
was
you got
cramping his
Yep.
style.
something?
I'm like, yeah, I'm
Yes,
always here,
I
buddy.
am.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because of
I'm
you.
on staff as security. You
I
want to make
know.
something out of it?
He made a big deal about that all the time. He's like, man, you're always here. And like, yeah, because
Like, yeah,
creeping
you're
on my
always here.
girlfriend.
Yeah, you're always here, you creep. So,
It's not
but
good.
tell about what happened to Selena that day.
Oh, okay. So Selena, love her. Just saw her the other day. Oh, she was my best friend at this job, right?
Shout out to Selena.
Yeah, we love you, Selena.
We like to call it the work bestie.
Yeah, she
Yes.
was my work bestie. And there was this guy, she was getting something out of the fridge, and I wasn't working this day. But she said she's getting something out of the fridge. This guy came to her, she had a braid in, was opening the fridge, and this guy...
Is this? I'm sorry. So sorry. Is it? It's not the fridge in the back. It's the main fridge that, like, when
Yeah,
you first
okay.
go in.
It's like a, it's
Yeah.
like a case.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
come up and you see what's in there. She was getting something for this guy, and he comes up and grabs her braid and traces it all the way down her back, just like...
Oh.
Yeah.
She like was out of there. I have one more story. Okay, my manager at the time, Stella.
Stella.
Or,
We won't name drop her for other reasons. She
uh,
was not a good manager. But anyway, she worked there at the time, and there's this dude came in. I wasn't working, and he was talking to all the girls, like trying to get their age. She's like, "How old are you? How old are you?" And the manager, he's like, "So, are you the youngest one here?" And she's like, she lied, she wasn't. And she's like, "Yeah, I'm the youngest one that works here." He's like, "How old are you?" She's like, "I'm 23." Yeah.
you got a story about that?
And,
I do.
Oh,
Later.
She was also the one.
honey, I don't think you can tell that story on the podcast.
Maybe not.
So insensitive,
Maybe not.
but it's funny.
Maybe if we do a paid extra thing, you
my
could tell it on there.
goodness.
It's just trying to get the ages of all the young girls, and I'm trying to decide if I name drop the manager. Probably not, but she had to ask him
Is
to
it Stella?
leave. Stellar was the manager, yeah, but I
Talking
meant the
about Beanie?
owner, yeah, Beanie.
Beanie?
Beanie, yeah.
But yeah. So that was really creepy. He was like, "Your perfume smells nice," and things like that.
You smell delicious.
No.
Like,
yeah.
you're gonna have to leave. And if this woman is kicking somebody out, it must be bad, because she is always down for a sale. So she's like,
That's the one
you
who
gotta
leaves
leave.
the
Smart.
nudist cups up.
Right.
And the dirty straw toppers.
I forgot what the dirty
Yeah, it
straw
had
toppers
cuss
were.
words on it.
I forgot.
Really?
That.
Yeah.
I remember
Like,
crazy.
bad ones.
I remember there was one that had a picture of like a Dr. Mario looking pill and it said Happy Pills.
You know, sometimes I do question.
Goodness.
Yeah. Well, Eric, do you have a story? Because you haven't told a story.
I have a few. So, I had a whirlwind time there. Did I do more or less career moves than you while in the same store in a short
I was going to say, you changed departments. So that was bigger than me.
I did produce for about a year and some change, right?
Yeah.
Was I there for 3? Did I put in 3? I put in like 2.5.
I don't even know, honestly, if it's that long, because I had been there for like 3 years before you started, and I was only there for 4.5, and you weren't there much longer than me. So maybe you did like 2 full years.
I think I at least had 2 full years in. I think it would work. So, beside the point. I'm working in produce. I like my job just fine. But I like money as well. If I'm going to work, I might as well get paid. And it's not like it would be different if I was just totally in love with this job.
Of course.
And it's what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, you know.
But that was not it.
You know, I'd do less pay and then work up. There's a chance for me to become the head of that department. The manager wanted me to stay in that department and come up to the head, but the head of the meat department had come over and he's like, hey, I noticed you actually work. I want you in my department and you'll get paid more and the job is coming available. I'm like, sounds good.
Oh, I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, and I wasn't sure about it, but I remember praying about it and just feeling a lot of peace. Then when I had like one day to choose.
And boy, was that false. No, I'm just kidding.
No, if I was going to sign up, and then I did. And I made bank in that position.
No, it was really good for that. For that,
raise.
yes,
Yeah.
it was
enjoyable as a job.
No, I don't think I.
Not really, but to be fair,
good.
like as far as like the hats that you're wearing, you basically wore one hat there.
True. It did diminish my other responsibilities with no pay. Well, another thing is they took away my ability to do a significant portion of that.
Sure, but you were just stocking meat.
Yeah.
And you got paid like not twice as much for it, but like time and a half more.
Yeah.
It was like significant pay raise.
It's good. It was.
You're making more than me.
And I love jobs where I could do physical work. I like to lift stuff. I like to.
But also, like, I mean, you helped people find stuff, but that wasn't like.
But that's not the
main part.
Only thing I do. By that I mean I'm not doing paperwork.
I hope my mic isn't freaking out the way I have
hate paperwork.
Clipped.
Anything to do with paperwork, I hate it so
I know.
much. So I'm like, I'd rather lift stuff. And
no about that. I don't mind paperwork then.
No, yeah. See, for me, I'm like, I'd rather lift and move and deliver and all that. But
So you got the meat job.
I got the meat job, and they were going to teach me how to cut meat.
They never really did.
Yeah, I cut meat like one time.
He kept saying he was going to teach him. He never did.
Saying he was going to.
It was basically like
one of the reasons I actually ended up leaving.
A magician telling you, "Oh, one day I will show you my tricks, but for right now, you just bring the rabbit to me. But one day you're going to take my place.
One day you'll take my place."
And then you do it for his entire career, and then on his deathbed he's like, "Oops, kind of forgot."
I've injured myself a decent amount of times there too, but also I'd like smashed my hand really good one time.
Yeah,
I still have like you can still see it on the back of my hand, 2 like pink blobs where I smashed it into a door with a cart.
Excuse me.
I smashed that one a couple times. It hurt so bad. I've never broken a bone, but I've busted myself up a lot.
Was that the story, or is there?
No, I forgot where I was going with that. Oh yes, okay.
My only meat story, really. I don't know if I can tell on here, but I'll tell you later.
Okay, there was one time I got sick multiple times while working, and the laziness in me is like I'd love to just call off, but then there's a sense of duty and doing the right thing that's like
heavy duty.
I'm not that sick, so I'll go in. This time I don't think I was sick at all until I got there. Like my head started hurting earlier in the day. What are you?
I remember it a bit differently, if I may.
Yeah, feel free.
Because I remember that day we were together. We were hanging out with our moms.
Okay.
Our families were hanging out. Yeah, because we were together the night before. We were hanging out that day. That's the day we got the Huey Lewis in the news from Goodwill.
Okay.
And you were feeling like sick. You were feeling not great.
Like I said, it's happened multiple times.
Well, I remember this specifically because I felt bad because I thought it was my fault. Because we had a date the night before, and like we stood on the porch talking for a long time. It was cold.
Yeah.
So I felt bad because I thought it was my fault.
Oh,
But
I don't think it was my fault.
I,
yeah.
at a certain point, just felt so sick. Like, you know the feeling in your chest?
Oh,
I don't know
yeah.
how to describe it, but your center of balance is off and you hate everything.
Yep.
And you just feel like you want to go lay down and die
Yep.
for a couple hours.
Yep.
I got to that point, and I was like, maybe I'll call off work. You know, I'd worked like half my shift, over half I think I had, but I had like 3 or 4 more hours to slog through, like an 8-hour shift, and I'm like, I can't do it. And Mom actually showed up at work. She was shopping. She's like, "You good?" And I was like, "No, I think I'm gonna have to come home with you. Yeah, would you mind to drive me home?" You know. And I think I'd been dropped off that day anyway.
Oh, really? So did you?
Because we had been out.
So did you? I guess I was gonna drive you home or whatever.
Maybe you were gonna drive me home, or someone was gonna drive me home on their way home. Like Dad might have picked me up on his way home or something. I forget what was gonna happen. But I was gonna get taken home.
Right.
And I ended up going to the manager at the time. We'll call her Trixie. Another Lazy Town friend, and she belonged in Lazy Town because she did nothing. But I was like, "Hey, I'm feeling awful." I think I might have even had the ladies in the pharmacy take my temperature because they had one of those, and I was like, had a fever. I'm like, "Hey,
Yeah, you're supposed to go home then, but anyway.
I'm like dying. I'm gonna go home." Basically, I'm not really asking. I'm just letting you know I don't feel well and I'm gonna have to go. And she's like, "Okay, but you need to put out more ground beef and straighten that up before you leave." And so I did. And I went home.
You should have called her Columbo because she was always. But one more thing.
One more thing, yeah. And I just went home and I felt awful.
I remember that.
Yeah.
That was a sad time.
Oh, from your mom, I use a lot.
Yeah.
I'll show you ground beef.
Mom was not happy.
So was Annie.
This was a new manager that came in at the tail end of me
She's
being
another
there.
one of the reasons I
But
left that store.
she was really bad. Like the management we had before, but she was really, really bad because what happened was she was probably put in there 3 or 4 months before I quit. And you know how many times I met her and like saw her face before I quit? Literally, I think twice. She was always on vacation, and then when she was there, she always left early, and she was never on the floor. She was always in her office. Usually, all the other managers, love them or hate them, were at least out doing something. She was always in her office. So it was very hard.
Physically shooed by this woman
Yep.
when I was doing a job that I was not
Get out of
supposed
here.
to be doing.
Yep.
She was on the phone with somebody, and I went there because I was supposed to. When I'm given a job, and I'm not given the training or proper equipment to do that job, it does not behoove me. I even attempt to. I will drive you crazy trying to do it in a way that you will be proud of, basically.
Yeah.
You are my boss, and you have put me in this precarious situation. You've thrown me to the wolves. That's fine, but they're going to nibble you too. You know? If I got a
weird way
question,
to put it,
I'm
but
going to
okay.
come ask.
Yeah, sure.
You know? If I got a problem, I'm asking you. I'm not going to be hesitant because you've put me in this bad situation.
Right.
So I went up there to ask her something because it was like, I think it was like a lady had come for pickup, but she had missed her time by like 12 hours and it wasn't letting me get in the system
Yeah.
or something like that. It was something where I had made an error on that computer, which is also possible. I did that plenty of times. But I go up there like, "Hey," and she's like, shoos me out of there.
Yeah.
She's on the phone. I'm like, such unprofessional behavior.
How long?
Yeah.
And another quick pickup story. One time I was taking groceries out to this lady's car and she had her window down. She was on the phone with her husband and she just starts crying and he's on speaker, so I hear the whole thing. She's like, "Honey, I'm sorry, but the dog jumped out in the road and got hit with a car and he died. I should have put that fence up, honey. I'm so sorry." She's just bawling her eyes out. She's like, he's like, "I'm trying to keep the kids from seeing it. I should have just put that fence up. It's all my fault. I'm so sorry." And she's like, "Okay." Hangs up and we're like, "So we had to make a few substitutions."
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like,
Do you have any coupons?
"Do you have any coupons with you, ma'am?" And then I'm like, "I'm so sorry to hear that."
That's
That
terrible.
makes me want a pet friend.
That pet Pet your pets.
Hold them close while you have them.
Hold them close while you have them. Go ahead and give your Lord of the Rings take.
Mine or yours? Oh, go ahead.
I think it was just like, there's no love story and a lot of swords. I forget exactly what I said.
That was basically the quote. I'm like, so what you think? Not really a love story, a lot of swords.
The books make it make more sense, but the movies are a little hard to follow for me.
You can't.
But anyway.
DVDs, but you know that if you can.
Not hard to follow, just hard to like. So, if the ring just turns you invisible, why does everybody want it? But that's not what it just does. The movie, I feel like, never goes into that. So
it doesn't really.
Good.
I just feel like it's hard to understand.
It's like pulling my teeth out. Anyway.
Yeah. So, how do we sign off on this?
Finger guns, or do we just do something different?
You could do something different, but I'm doing finger guns.
Okay.
Well, thanks for watching.
Yes, thanks for watching. How about let's do a recommendation.
What's a recommendation?
From each of us, we recommend something.
Okay.
So we'll start ladies first. What would you recommend?
That Roger goes first while I think of something.
Okay.
That's a good recommendation. I will recommend the musical group Riders. You just have to look into it. Eric doesn't like it, but it's good. Riders. Riders.
I'm going to recommend the Wing Feather Saga by Andrew Peterson. Very wonderful books, sort of similar to Narnia, at least setting wise. Very, very, very good. I would recommend those.
Yes. I'm gonna recommend you rewatch The Parent Trap with Lindsay Lohan. I know you've seen it, but see it
That's
again.
a good recommendation, yeah.
It's great. It's my favorite.
It is a good movie.
It's behind us.
Yeah.
You
great.
can't borrow that though. That's mine. But it's on Disney
And you
Plus.
probably don't have a VHS player.
We don't either. But
We don't either.
we're
What is there?
looking for
I'll
one.
also recommend Ernest Goes to Camp.
Which is also
That
behind
is
us.
a
That's a good
formative
movie.
of my life.
Watch Ernest Goes to Jail.
Whoa.
I don't
It's
think
pretty
we need
good.
to dig into that now.
Yeah. Okay.
Podcast.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.